All right, so welcome to the deep dive where we kind of roll up our sleeves and get into some really interesting ideas. And today we're talking about taking control, like really taking the reins of your life.
Taking control, that's a big one, huh? I mean, who doesn't want more control in their life?
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. And to guide us, we've got, well, actually just one source today. It's a YouTube video, pretty popular one too. It's called Don't Let These Five Things Control You from, let me see, Faiza Vlogs.
Okay. Don't let these five things control you, huh? Well, I'm all ears. Let's hear what she's got to say.
Yeah. And as we dive into this, I really want us to think about, like what actionable advice can we pull out of this? And how can we then use that to, make some real changes for ourselves and, of course, for you guys listening out there. So let's jump right in. The video starts off strong, like right out the gate, with these five key areas, things that might be holding us back from, I don't know, from true freedom, maybe, that sort of thing. And the very first one, it really, really resonated with me. The past.
Hmm. Yeah. The past. I mean, it's always there, isn't it? Lurking.
Always lurking, yeah.
Mm.
And it's so easy to get stuck there, to dwell on, I don't know, maybe some old hurts or
Oh,
regrets.
absolutely. That's human nature, right? To dwell on the negative. I mean, it's like our brains are wired for it.
It's crazy, right? And Faiza Rehan, she puts it so well. She says, leave the darkness of your past behind so it cannot block the light of your bright future. It's like, bam, right there.
Yeah.
So powerful, so visual.
It is a striking image. I can see why it resonated with you. And, it's interesting because in psychology, we talk a lot about the impact of the past. But it's not about, pretending it never happened or trying to, like, just erase it.
Right, because that's not possible, is it?
Exactly. It's more about how we relate to those past experiences, how we let them shape our present.
So what, like reframing them or something?
You got it. It's about shifting our perspective, reframing, finding new ways to understand and make meaning of those experiences.
Okay, so not just like shoving it all under the rug and pretending it didn't happen, but like actively trying to see it in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. Are there like specific techniques for this reframing?
Oh, absolutely. There are all sorts of techniques. Cognitive reframing, for example, that's a big one in cognitive behavioral therapy. Or CBT, you've probably heard of that.
CBT, yeah, I've heard of it,
Yeah.
but I'm not really familiar with it.
Well, in a nutshell, it's about identifying and then challenging those negative thought patterns that, can stem from past experiences. So, like, let's say you bombed a presentation at work a few years ago and you still cringe every time you think about it. CBT would help you, challenge that negative thought pattern and maybe replace it with something more positive.
Okay, so instead of dwelling on the cringeworthy moment, I try to focus on what I learned from it and how I can use that experience to do better next time.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your power by choosing how those experiences inform your present.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah.
Reclaiming your power. It's
Yeah.
empowering, isn't it?
It is. And it's something we can all do, regardless of our past experiences.
That's so important. So I'm just taking some notes here, making sure I get all this down. So we've got the past, check. Now, what's the next thing on FISA's list of things that try to control us?
Well, buckle up because this one is something I think we can all relate to other people's opinions.
Ugh, tell me about it. The pressure to fit in, to meet other people's expectations. I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it?
It is. It's deeply ingrained in our culture and our society.
Totally. And the video actually has this amazing line about it. Don't dim your life so you fit into the dull background of other people's lives. Shine bright as you are. It's so good, right?
It's a powerful message of self-acceptance. And, it's not about ignoring other people's opinions entirely.
Right, because that's probably not realistic, is it?
Exactly. It's more about, I don't know, becoming more discerning about which opinions you allow to influence you.
So, like, how do you do that? How do you decide which opinions to listen to and which ones to just, like, let roll off your back?
Well, I think it starts with knowing your authentic self. Like, what truly matters to you? What are your core values? And do your choices reflect those values?
That's a really interesting way to think about it. So it's less about completely tuning out all external noise and more about aligning your actions with what you believe in.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that societal pressures are real. I mean, they're part of our evolutionary wiring, right? We're social creatures. We crave connection, we crave belonging.
We do, we really do.
But, you can use that understanding to your advantage to make conscious choices about who you allow to influence you.
So it's like, okay, I know I have this need for approval, but instead of letting it control me, I'm going to be more selective about where I seek that approval. I'm going to surround myself with people who support my authentic self.
Exactly. And that's a huge step towards freedom, isn't it?
Uh,
Choosing who you allow to influence you. It's powerful.
it is. It's like you're taking back the reins. Okay, so we've talked about the past and other people's opinions.
Hmm.
What's next on this list of things we need to break free from?
This one is a bit more insidious. It's about the limitations we often place on ourselves.
Ooh, that's interesting. You mean like self-sabotage or something?
Well, it can manifest as self-sabotage, yes, but it's often more subtle than that. It's about those unconscious beliefs that tell us what we can and cannot do.
Ah, okay, I see what you mean. It's like the stuff we tell ourselves, those limiting beliefs.
Precisely. And they can be so sneaky because we often don't even realize they're there. They just become part of our internal operating system.
So true. And Faiza's video, it really nails it when it talks about how we've been conditioned from a young age to accept these limitations. It's like we're taught to think inside the box, even if we don't realize it.
Right. And those limiting beliefs can be based on so many things: our upbringing, our culture, past experiences, even just societal conditioning.
Yeah, it's crazy how much of this stuff we just absorb without even questioning it.
And the thing is, they can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Like, if you believe you're not good at math, you're probably going to avoid math-related activities, and that's just going to reinforce that belief.
Well, that's a really good point. So it's almost like those beliefs create our reality.
In a way, yes. Our beliefs shape our thoughts, our actions, and ultimately our experiences.
So what can we do about it? Because the video also has this line where it's like, notice your own limited beliefs and tell them to shut up. I love the boldness of that. But realistically, how do you shut up a belief that's been ingrained in you for like your whole life?
Well, it's not always about silencing them completely. It's more about becoming aware of them and then consciously choosing to challenge them. Just like with reframing past experiences, we can use tools and techniques to shift our perspective and create new, more empowering beliefs.
Okay, so it's about retraining our brains, kind of like we were talking about with CBT.
Yes, exactly. It's like we're upgrading our internal software.
I love that analogy. It's so much easier to grasp than, all the complicated psychological jargon.
I try to keep it simple.
Well, you're doing a great job. I'm definitely feeling more empowered already.
Hmm.
So let's see. We've covered the past, other people's opinions, and our own limiting beliefs. That's 3 down, 2 to go on this journey toward taking control. What's next?
Well, this one is all about something that's both incredibly powerful and often a source of where we give up our control: relationships.
Relationships. Okay, that's a big one. And I have to admit, when I first saw this on Faiza's list, I immediately thought, oh, this is going to be about romantic relationships. But as I watched, I realized it's so much broader than that, isn't it? It's about all our connections.
It is. It's about our connections with family, with friends, with colleagues, well, even with ourselves. And I think that's where the real power lies, in understanding the dynamics of all these relationships and how they impact our lives.
So what's the key takeaway about relationships? Like, what's the trap we need to avoid? Because I know Faiza had some pretty strong words about this.
She did. And it comes down to finding that balance between connection and independence.
Ah, that makes sense. It's like we need both, right? We're social creatures. We need connection.
Yeah.
But we also need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet.
Exactly. And that's where things can get tricky, because it's easy to fall into patterns of dependence where we rely on others for our happiness or our sense of self-worth.
And that's when we start giving away our power.
Right. And that's what Faiza is warning us about. She even says, if you are always needing another to be happy, to feel complete, then you are always one moment away from a breakdown if that person leaves you.
Ooh, that's a tough one. But I get it. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. If that basket breaks, you've got nothing left.
It's a powerful analogy, isn't it? And it highlights the importance of cultivating a strong sense of self, of finding happiness and fulfillment within ourselves, first and foremost.
So it's not about isolating ourselves or avoiding relationships altogether. It's about approaching them from a place of strength and wholeness.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we are complete and worthy, just as we are. And when we come from that place, our relationships become so much richer and more fulfilling.
I love that. It's about choosing to be in relationships, not needing to be in them.
You got it. And that's a powerful shift in perspective.
Okay, relationships, check. One more area to go on this journey toward taking control, and I'm guessing this one might be the most challenging for many people. Money.
Money, yes. It's a topic that's loaded with all sorts of emotions and societal conditioning.
No kidding. Seems like everyone has an opinion about money, but no one wants to talk about it openly.
I know, right? It's like this taboo subject,
Yeah.
but it's so important to talk about it because it impacts so many areas of our lives.
It does, and I appreciate that Faiza doesn't shy away from it. She addresses it head on in the video.
She does. And she challenges us to really examine our relationship with money. Like, what does it mean to us? How does it influence our choices?
I love that question because I think for a lot of people, money is something they either chase after or avoid at all costs, but there's got to be a healthier way to relate to it, right?
Absolutely. And I think it starts with recognizing that money is a tool. It's not inherently good or bad. It's all about how we use it.
Okay, so it's about reframing our perspective on money, kind of like we were talking about with the past.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset from scarcity to abundance, from fear to empowerment.
Okay, I'm liking this already, but like, how do we actually do that?
Well, it starts with becoming aware of our own money story. Like, what beliefs do we have about money? Where did those beliefs come from? And are they serving us?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about my money story before, but I'm guessing it's probably a mix of what I learned from my family, my culture, and, just all the messages we get from society.
Exactly. We all have a money story, and once we start to understand ours, we can start to rewrite it. We can create a new story that's more aligned with our values and our vision for our lives.
So it's like we're the authors of our own financial destinies. I love that. But I'm guessing it's not as easy as just snapping our fingers and changing our beliefs about money.
You're right. It takes time and effort, but it's definitely possible. And there are so many resources available to help us on this journey.
So what's the first step? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is to just start paying attention. Notice your thoughts and feelings about money, become aware of your spending habits, and start to question those beliefs that might be holding you back.
Okay, so awareness is key, just like with the other areas we've talked about.
Exactly. Awareness is the foundation for change.
I'm loving this conversation. We've covered so much ground already. And it's amazing to see how these 5 areas, the past, other people's opinions, our beliefs, relationships, and money, are all interconnected in this journey toward taking control.
They are. And, it makes me think about the importance of mindfulness in this whole process. Because if we're not paying attention, we can easily fall back into those old patterns, those old ways of thinking and being.
Totally. It's like we need to develop this radar for those things that try to control us so we can consciously choose a different path.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about freedom. It's about having the awareness and the tools to make choices that align with our values and our vision for our lives.
So it's not about escaping the world or avoiding responsibility. It's about taking ownership of our choices and creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic.
Yeah.
Because Faiza Rehan actually offers some very specific advice on how to take action in each of these 5 areas.
Oh, I'm so curious to hear this because, we've talked a lot about the big picture, but now I want to know, like, what are some practical steps we can take? What can we start doing today to move towards a life of greater freedom and control?
I'm happy to share some of her insights. And I think you'll find that her advice is both simple and profound.
Well, let's dive in. I'm ready to take notes.
All right, let's start with the past. Faiza suggests a very specific exercise.
Okay, so this exercise for dealing with the past, what is it?
It's actually pretty simple. She calls it the letter of forgiveness. Basically, you sit down and you write a letter.
A letter. To who? Like to the person who wronged you?
It could be to a person, yeah, but it could also be to yourself. It's really about, whoever or whatever you're holding on to from the past.
That's interesting. So it's not necessarily about sending the letter. It's more about the process of writing it.
Exactly. It's about getting those feelings out of your head and onto paper. And it's about forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That's a big one, isn't it?
It is, but it's so important for letting go and moving on.
So you write this letter, you pour out all your feelings, and then what? Do you, like, burn it or something?
Some people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't have to. You can keep it, you can tear it up, you can do whatever feels right for you. The important thing is the act of writing it.
Okay, I can see how that could be really cathartic.
Yeah.
To just, like, get it all out.
It is. And it's not always easy. Forgiveness takes time, and it takes practice, but it's so worth it.
I'm definitely going to try that. The letter of forgiveness. Okay, so that's for the past. What about other people's opinions? What does FISA suggest we do about that?
Well, she has this great analogy. She says it's like a radio.
A radio.
Yeah, she says, you have all these different stations out there, all these different opinions and voices, and you get to choose which station you tune into.
Ooh, I like that. So it's not about blocking out all the noise. It's about being selective about what you listen to.
Exactly. And sometimes you need to just turn the radio off completely.
Take a break from all the noise.
Yeah.
Yes, I can definitely relate to that.
And the thing is, once you start being more mindful of the opinions you're allowing into your head, you'll start to notice that a lot of it is just noise. That doesn't actually matter.
It's like background noise. You don't even realize it's there until you turn it off.
Precisely. And once you create that space, that quiet, you can start to hear your own inner voice more clearly.
And that's where the magic happens, right? When we start to trust our own intuition.
Absolutely. And that's a huge part of taking control. It's about trusting yourself, your own judgment, your own inner wisdom.
Love it. Okay, so we've got our letter of forgiveness for the past, our radio analogy for other people's opinions. What about those pesky limiting beliefs? What's the antidote for those?
Well, Faiza's advice for this one is all about action.
Action.
Yeah. She says the best way to overcome a limiting belief is to prove it wrong.
Ooh, I like that. So it's not about trying to think your way out of it. It's about taking action and seeing what happens.
Exactly. It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and challenging those beliefs head on.
So, like, if you have a limiting belief that you're not good at public speaking, you would, what, sign up for a Toastmasters group?
Exactly. Or you could volunteer to give a presentation at work. Or even just start practicing speaking up more in meetings.
I love it. It's like you're showing yourself that those beliefs aren't true. And in the process, you're building confidence and creating new, more empowering beliefs.
That's it. It's like you're rewiring your brain, creating new neural pathways.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. I'm ready to take on the world. But before I get too carried away, what about relationships? This one feels a little trickier. How do we take action to create healthier relationships?
Well, Faiza's advice here is all about boundaries.
Boundaries, yes, I knew you were going to say that. Boundaries are so important, but they can be hard to set, especially with people we're close to.
I agree. But it's essential for healthy relationships. And it's not about being mean or selfish. It's about respecting yourself and your needs.
Right. It's about communicating what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. And it's about being willing to say no.
Exactly. And it takes practice. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the more respect you'll have for yourself. And the more respect others will have for you too.
So it's like setting boundaries is a form of self-care.
It is. It's one of the most important forms of self-care.
Okay, boundaries, check. One more to go on Faiza's list money. What's the action step for that?
This one might surprise you. She says to start a gratitude journal.
A gratitude journal. For money.
Yeah. It's about shifting your focus from what you don't have to what you do have.
I can see how that could be helpful. Because when we're focused on lack, it's easy to get into that scarcity mindset.
Exactly. But when we start to appreciate what we already have, it opens us up to receiving more abundance.
So even if you're struggling financially, you can still find things to be grateful for.
Absolutely. It could be as simple as being grateful for a roof over your head, food on the table, or even just the clothes on your back.
I love that. It's about finding the good in every situation. And it's about recognizing that true wealth is about so much more than just money.
Beautifully said. And, gratitude is such a powerful emotion. It can really shift our entire perspective.
Like a magic potion for happiness.
I like that. A magic potion for happiness.
Okay, so we've got our 5 action steps. The letter of forgiveness for the past, the radio analogy for other people's opinions, taking action to overcome limiting beliefs, setting boundaries in relationships, and starting a gratitude journal for money. That's a lot to process.
It is, but remember, it's about taking small steps, one day at a time.
So true. We don't have to do it all at once.
And that's what's so great about Faiza's advice. It's all very practical and doable.
It is. And it's really empowering because it shows us that we have the power to create change in our lives.
Yeah.
We don't have to be victims of circumstance. We can choose to take control.
Exactly. And that's what I love about these deep dives. It's about exploring these ideas and seeing how we can apply them to our own lives.
Absolutely. And, as we've been talking about these 5 areas, it's become clear to me that they're all interconnected in some way.
I agree. It's like they're all pieces of the same puzzle.
Exactly. And the puzzle is, well, it's us. It's our lives. And the goal is to put all the pieces together in a way that creates a beautiful and fulfilling picture.
I love that analogy, the puzzle of our lives.
And what's interesting to me is that Faiza never explicitly uses the word freedom in the video. But it's like this underlying theme that connects all 5 points. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about freedom. Freedom from the past, freedom from other people's opinions, freedom from our own limiting beliefs, freedom from unhealthy relationships, and freedom from the fear of scarcity.
Wow, when you put it like that, it's really powerful, isn't it? Freedom is what we all crave.
It is, and it's something we can all achieve no matter what our circumstances.
It really is powerful when you think about it like that, all these different aspects of freedom.
It is, and it makes you realize that freedom, well, it's not just this abstract idea, is it? It's something we can actively cultivate.
Right. It's like we're building this, I don't know, this foundation for a more fulfilling life.
Exactly, and that foundation is built on, well, on awareness. Like we were saying before, if we're not paying attention, we can so easily slip back into those old patterns, those habits that keep us feeling, I don't know, trapped maybe.
Oh, totally. Like, it's like we need to develop this inner radar for all those things that try to, I don't know, like snag our freedom away from us.
Yeah, a freedom radar. I love that.
Right. And once that radar goes off, then we can, like consciously choose a different path, a different way of responding.
Exactly. It's about that pause, that moment of choice. And that's where mindfulness comes in, doesn't it? It's about creating that space between, well, between a stimulus and a reaction.
That space to choose. I love that.
Yeah, and that's what practices like meditation or journaling, that's what they're all about. They help us, train our minds to be more present, more aware.
So we can catch ourselves in those moments.
Yeah.
Before we, react automatically.
Exactly. And that's where real change happens, isn't it? In those moments of awareness, when we choose to respond differently.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about these 5 areas that can impact our sense of freedom, the past, other people's opinions, our beliefs, relationships, money. But I think it's time to, bring it all home for our listener.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, knowing is only half the battle, right? I mean, we can talk about these things all day long, but if we don't actually do anything with this knowledge, it's not going to do us much good.
So true.
So what are some practical things that our listeners can start doing today, like right now,
Yeah.
to move toward a life of, I don't know, like greater agency, more fulfillment? Because it can feel kind of overwhelming, right? To think about tackling all 5 of these areas at once.
Right. It's a lot to take in.
It is. So where do you even start?
Well, I think it starts with that awareness that we keep coming back to. Just that willingness to examine your thoughts and your beliefs and your behaviors.
Okay, so like take a step back and just observe.
Exactly. Just observe without judgment. And then, from there, it's about taking small, consistent steps toward change.
Okay, small steps. I like that. Not trying to, overhaul my entire life overnight, but just making, I don't know, like little tweaks here and there.
Precisely. It's about progress, not perfection.
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing that down. It's a good mantra. But can you give me like an example of a small step?
Sure. I mean, it could be something as simple as setting aside, I don't know, 5 minutes each day to practice gratitude. Like write down 3 things you're grateful for.
5 minutes. I can do that.
Right. Or it could be, committing to one act of self-care each week,
Yeah.
like taking a long bath or reading a book or going for a walk in nature.
Those are great ideas. And what I love about those is that they're not huge, like life-altering things. They're small, they're manageable, but they can still have a big impact.
Exactly. And as you start to experience those benefits, those small changes, they create this, this ripple effect, It's like they start to shift your whole perspective.
And then those small changes can lead to bigger changes, like a snowball effect.
Precisely. And that's how lasting change happens. Through those small, consistent actions, not through those big, dramatic gestures.
I love that. Small actions, big impact. Okay, so I know we've covered a lot of ground today, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling, well, maybe a little bit overwhelmed, but also, I hope, inspired.
I hope so too.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with? Anything they should keep in mind as they start to, implement these ideas in their own lives?
Well, I would just say this, be kind to yourself. This is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs. There will be times when you slip back into old patterns.
Oh, definitely. It happens to all of us.
It does, but that's okay. It's all part of the process. The important thing is to just keep coming back to those practices that help you feel grounded and empowered.
And so true. It's like progress over perfection.
Right. Exactly. Progress over perfection. And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Right. Reach out for support if you need it. There are so many resources available.
There are. So be kind to yourself, be patient, and keep moving forward, one step at a time.
Love it. Such great advice. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, remember, you have the power to create a life that is truly free, joyful, and fulfilling. It starts with you.
Thanks for listening.